Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
It is one of the biggest racing days of the year on Saturday. Graded stakes races all across the country. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona. 4 of those graded stakes races, David, are out at the Belmont at the Big A meet, and they begin in race number 5 with the Jockey Club Derby Invitational. It's going to go as a grade 3 event. Let's take a look at the field. It's going to be lining up for that one. If you can, take just a second and subscribe to our YouTube channel below. Throw up a like. That's very helpful for us in getting these videos all spread around. So, David, as we look at this field, Carson's run has been very, very good so far this year as a 3-year-old. He was a grade 1 winner at 2 and a grade 1 winner at 3. I think you move to the outside. Legend of Time, he's a graded stakes winner, and he's been a pretty nice measuring stick in his last 3. The Pennant Ridge, the Belmont Derby, he was 3rd. The Saratoga Derby came back and was 2nd. So feels like a horse who's a really good fit at this level. Those are probably 2 of the horses to beat in here.
Yeah, we don't have too many horses competing in all 3 legs of this Turf Triple Series in New York. Legend of Time actually went favored in the first couple of legs. The Belmont Derby finished 3rd as the favorite. The Saratoga Derby finished 2nd as the favorite. We'll see if he goes favorite again, though it seems like the bettors can't get enough of these Charlie Appleby Godolphin horses, and maybe he can go one better with the result this time.
Let's see what Timeform US thinks as far as the pace of this race is concerned. They'll be going 1 mile and 3/8 in here. Yo Daddy, just coming out of some quicker races, some mile and a 16th races. They have him projected towards the lead. Legend of Time has been able to use some positional speed and some tactical speed when called upon. I wouldn't be shocked to see the 2, a horse who's been able to sit closer in the last few, also try to get a little aggressive from down there. But there's not necessarily any real dead set front runners in here, David.
No, there really is very little pace in this race. When you see the number 3 Chicklet of Carson's run that close to the pace at a stalking position, that says to you that there really is no speed, because Carson's run is typically a deep closing type. So we'll see what kind of pace he and some others who want to be coming from off of it get to close into here. I also wouldn't be surprised if the other Christophe Clement trainee, Deterministic, gets a little more aggressive in here, because he's been in some faster paced races, going shorter, stretching out for the first time.
Let's take a look at the field and let's meet the runners in here horse by horse. We'll start with the number 1, Desfio. This horse is grade 3 placed, actually won the Kent a couple starts back at Delaware Park. Most recently comes out of a 3rd place finish, and that was his first start back after a short break. Now he goes back to 1 mile and 3/8. And that'll probably be better for him. He seems just visually like more of a grinder. I think the longer distances probably play better to him. And he was a step slow last out. I thought his effort was kind of sneaky. But all that being said, David, is he good enough to compete with a group like this? I do think he's a solid horse, and I like him at the distance, but class-wise, does he fit with this group?
Yeah, I think we know that he's got the stamina to get this trip, as he showed in the Kent Stakes 2-pack. It's just a question of class with him, as you were getting at. Looking back at the field that he beat in that Kent Stakes, it feels like more of a glorified allowance race in retrospect. Some horses came back out of that race. They were also rans in the Nashville Derby at Kentucky Downs that we'll talk about for a different horse in here. And I agree, Desfio ran fine behind Deterministic last time in the Virginia Derby, had a little bit more traffic to deal with. It still never felt like he was really getting there that day. He's so one-paced. So we'll see if the pace comes back to him here, but I just wondered if he was going to get the setup in the spot.
I think the 2's a real wild card in here, because in a race that does not have all that much early speed, Dashman is a horse who has shown improvement this year, and a lot of that improvement has just been being able to sit a little bit closer, show a more tactical speed, get involved in the race early on. My concern would be that he's perked up a little bit, David, this year, and both of those races have been when he's able to been running with Lasix, and that won't be the case in this spot. But as far as trip is concerned, he should be able to save ground down towards the inside in 3rd, start off the bench. I think he'll give a pretty good account of himself in here. Not sure if he is quite at this level, but pace can sometimes be an evening factor in races like this. So maybe he can get the jump on some of the deeper closers. What do you think about Dashman?
He was a tough read for me because I agree that he's really taken a step forward this year. He was visually impressive breaking his maiden at Ellis Park, and then last time out at Kentucky Downs, he won that race going away like an extra 16th of a mile that he gets here is not going to be much of a problem for him. Just looking back through the fields that he beat, I know the raw time was very fast at Ellis Park, but there wasn't a whole lot behind him in terms of horses coming back to show that should have been a faster race than the speed figure suggested. And last time at Kentucky Downs, again, I wasn't thrilled with who he was beating, even though he looked good doing it. So it's kind of hard for me to peg his overall quality, but I do agree he could be the recipient of a very good trip here.
Carson's Run, one of those horses that you could look at and you go over his entire body of work. And if you eliminate the race that sent him to the bench in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, and then you give him a little bit of a pass for his first start off the bench, everything else in his career makes sense. Grade 1 winner at 2, Grade 1 winner at 3. He feels like the one that they'll all have to beat in here, like the one to hold off, David. Just the concern with him is he's not very fast early on. So sometimes he can be at the mercy of whatever the pace shape is.
Yeah, I made the morning line favorite somebody else, but I do agree Carson's Run is the horse to beat in this race based on his recent body of work. Here's a look at his Saratoga Derby victory, the second leg of this series, 2 starts ago, when he just mowed this field down in the stretch, actually beating a couple of horses that he'll be facing again here, Legend of Time and his stablemate Deterministic. He came back out of this race to compete in that Nashville Derby at Kentucky Downs last time and got pretty far back early, as he is wont to do, and he was making up ground late. That was sort of an outside flow race where he was the only horse making up ground along the inside, for whatever that's worth. And he finished up okay going the mile in 5/16. Now he's got to stretch out to the mile in 3/8, trying 3 turns for the first time. Based on his style, I don't see any reason why he can't do it, but it is a question for a horse at a short price.
Yo Daddy, the number 4, kind of feels just a cut below this group, but from a pace standpoint, Timeform US had him projected to be right towards the front of this field early on, and he is coming out of some of the shorter races, which a lot of times would project him to be towards the front in here. Grade 2 place last out, he was behind West Hollywood, but he was beaten 5 lengths, and his speed figures on the turf, David, they're just not quite as good as some of the others in here, and they're not quite as good as his speed figures are on the dirt.
Yeah, we might have 2 of the best progeny of Yoshida that are racing anywhere in this race between he and Desvio. But Yo Daddy, he's run his better numbers on the dirt, as you said. And the turf is a real question mark, and also his class level is a question as well. That Saranac obviously was marred by an unfortunate spill in the stretch. He would have been 3rd in that race if not for that unfortunate incident. And his prior turf races, while I didn't think he got ideal trips in them, he still hasn't run nearly fast enough to be considered a contender here. The distance is a concern. So I thought he was a little tough to make in here.
Deterministic is the number 5. He's a multiple graded stakes winner, a grade 3 winner on the turf. He fits really well in this spot. And in that Virginia Derby, which was his last start over at Colonial, he really didn't look like he was going to win that race for a lot of it. And I think his class really just got him there. He's a tough horse too. And he's a horse who will try to fight you. I would not be shocked, David, as you kind of suggested a few moments ago, that this could be a horse who might be more forwardly placed in here almost by default, because it's just a race that doesn't have very many horses who are quick early. So what are you expecting for Deterministic?
Yeah, when I was initially handicapping this race, I sort of found myself dismissing him as a horse that I thought it was strange the connections even entered him to go this distance, because you wouldn't think of him as a horse that would want a marathon. But I was going back to watch some of his races, and he's got that slower cadence to his stride and real stretch when he lengthens his stride through the lane, like a horse that actually is built for going these longer distances. So I kind of get the thinking to stretch him out a little further. And with that tactical speed that he possesses, having been closer to the pace than some others in some faster paced races going shorter distances, I think the connections would be smart to use his tactical speed, go forward in this race under Joel Rosario, because we know he's got that relentless finish that he has used in races like the Saratoga Derby and the Manila, where he hasn't quite gotten there. And we'll see if he can get the jump on some others in this race.
And one of the situations where it'll be a positive for both of the Clement runners if you were to do that, because that would probably give Carson's Run a little bit of pace to run into, but it would also give him his best chance in trying to get the jump on some of the others. So not even a rabbit situation, just doing what's best, most likely for both of these horses to give them their best chance of winning this particular race. Towards the outside, we have 2 top contenders in this one, David. First up is the number 6, Rezeen, who's added the blinkers and has really perked up over the last couple. Just visually, very, very impressive efforts. That most recent race was, I think, 5th, 6th, was in some traffic. and moved up into contention, and then quickly just opened up on the field. So those last two races for a horse who had been kind of knocking on the door, he really did step forward. And what's a positive, he beat older horses in those last couple races and now gets to shift back in with only 3-year-olds.
Yeah, it was sort of easy to chalk his victory to back up to a very good trip as he just saved ground and slipped through along the inside in a race where the runner-up had a tougher trip. But he confirmed last time that he is continuing this upward trajectory as he took another big step forward to earn a 92 buyer, which I think is the highest number of anybody in this field aside from Deterministic's dirt race in the Gotham. And he got the 1 3/8 distance with no problem, with a 1.5 miles too back. So you know that stamina is no issue. And he just feels like the kind of horse that can make his own good trip because he's got decent tactical speed. He doesn't have to be far back early, and he's got that strong turn of foot and sprint finish. So I think he's got enough weapons in his arsenal to make him pretty dangerous in this race.
Let's finish up the field with one of the horses who will take a good amount of money. That's Legend of Time, Grade 2 winner. These Appleby runners always get bet. Pratt is aboard, so we'll lure some more money there. And he fits. I mean, he won the Pendant Ridge, but in his last 2 starts, he's been the beaten favorite. And while he's run well, I've been kind of a little disappointed in some of his efforts, David, just kind of wanting a little bit more from him. I do think that I would not be shocked to see him win this race or show up again with a good effort. But from a value-based standpoint, his value versus his actual chances of winning the race, that's where I start hemming and hawing with a lot of these Appleby runners, because they obviously all can run really well and can win. But what price are you willing to take with a lot of them?
Yeah, I'm kind of done with this horse. I mean, I guess you could argue that maybe he moved a little soon last time in the Saratoga Derby when he got run down by Carson's run in the late stages of that race. But still, it felt like he was supposed to win if he was as good as advertised. And he's just never really taken that step forward that I think people have been waiting for since coming to the United States. And I think we should also recognize that it's been a little bit of a slump for Charlie Appleby recently. His horses have not been winning at the rate that we've grown accustomed to. And we've seen a lot of horses like this that have spent their entire spring, summers, and now fall in the U.S. not really progressing the more time they spend in this country. So I wonder if there is that step forward for Legend of Time. It probably is going to be a short price once again.
Well, let's get to the selections here and see where we went. David, you're going to put Deterministic on top. So 5, 6, 3, 1 for you.
Yeah, just hoping this horse gets a better forward position than he has in some recent races. And I do think that the added distance might actually suit him based on his style.
Yeah, it looks like we're both kind of hoping for the same sort of angle. We're looking for horses who could sit closer up and maybe get the jump on some of the deeper runners in here. For me, I'm hoping that's the 2 Dashman, who is perked up a little bit and then can save some ground down on the inside and have every opportunity to show he's good enough when they hit the top of the stretch. So I'll put Dashman on top, 2, 3, 6, 7, 5, 6, 3, 1. Dave and I both looking for some prices in race number 5 on Saturday at Belmont at the Big A.
Hey, let me give you a hot tip. If you liked the content that you've seen before, click on the like and subscribe button right here. And of course, for more DRF videos like Race of the Days, stakes previews, click on the videos right here.